I'm going to start if that's okay. So I'll call this Community Safety Standing Policy Committee to order. This is the initial meeting of this particular committee. So before we start, I'll just read the reconciliation statement, which states that the City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also the home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. Before we start, we'll just do a roll call. Members of the committee, Councillor Campbell.
Here.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Present.
Councillor Parker. Here. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Present.
So all members of the committee are in attendance. In addition, we have other members of council viewing the proceedings. So first order of business is to look at establishing a chair. So the process has been outlined. Is there any objections to the process which is outlined? Councillor Parker?
Well, since we're in the process, we have to nominate a chair.
Right.
I'd like to take the opportunity to nominate Jen Schmidt-Rempel as our chairman. And if that's only if she's willing to accept the nomination.
So Councillor Rempel, speak in your microphone.
Yes.
Great. Is there any further nominations? Hearing none, I declare Councillor
Going to vote?
We will.
No, we don't vote because there's only one nomination, unless you want to vote. Okay, so all those in favor of Councillor Schmidt-Rempel being the chair of the committee, please say aye. Any opposed? I declare that the Councillor Schmidt-Rempel is the chair, so we'll take a moment for her to take her seat.
So our next order of business then would be to elect a vice chair. Do I have any nominations for that?
I'll nominate Ryan Parker.
I reluctantly decline.
I nominate
Yeah,
John.
but thank you, I appreciate that. I've chaired it before, I just give someone else an opportunity to do it as
And
well.
can I make another nomination?
Sure.
John Middleton Hope. Vice Chair.
You should have it, Mark. It's,
Okay, all right.
yeah, so he declined as well.
Okay, so
I'll decline. No, I'll take it. Okay, sure.
Mark will volunteer because everybody else is
Okay,
declining?
that's fine. No.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do we need a motion for that? No? Nobody needs to vote? Okay, declared elected by acclamation, Councillor Campbell. Moving on, adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes or anything they'd like to add to the agenda? Any questions about what we've got right now? Could I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? John Middleton Hope, second by Parker. All in favor? Next is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions with regards to the consent agenda as it was attached from May 26, 2021? Seeing none, could I please have a motion? The Community Safety Standing Policy Committee meeting held on Wednesday, May 26th be approved and the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. John Middleton Hope, seconded. Mark Campbell, all in favor? Okay. And presentations. So we have a presentation today on the light nuisance bylaw. We have Rena Wass here to speak. Rena, or Ms. Wass, if you'd like to come up. We do have 5 minutes allotted for you to speak.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to hear this presentation. Light pollution has been on my radar for over 25 years. I became really interested in it because when a technology impacts society the way light has, it just, it calls out for more investigation. So that's what I've done. You can see that it's not just me, but many people are aware of not just the benefits of light, but the problems that it has created throughout society and throughout our environment. And that's why you've got 10 letters before you. And it's just probably the tip of the iceberg. The more people that become aware of this, they advocate for bylaws that curb light pollution so that we engage in good lighting practice. And that's what we all want. You ran for council because you want to make our community the best that it can be. And I'm here before you for that same reason. So I know I've given you a plethora of information. I hope I've not inundated you, but there's so many videos out there that in less than half an hour you'll be up to speed on it. Many cities across Canada already have light pollution bylaws in place, and light pollution falls under the umbrella of nuisance. So just like noise, dust, vibration, light is considered to be a nuisance when it's not properly used. And that's what we're finding is happening, not just in Lethbridge, but everywhere. And that's why many cities and countries around the world have taken measures, because they see the benefits of putting regulations in place so that our society functions in a better way. And a couple of examples that I gave you was currently if a neighbor turns on an outdoor light and it streams into your home, there isn't a darn thing you can do about it. You can call the police. The police can't do anything about it because there is no bylaw to safeguard citizens from that kind of trespass. The same goes for your yard. If you're outdoors enjoying your yard and somebody's cranking up their music, there is a bylaw that'll address that. But there is no bylaw if you want to just enjoy a dark evening out in your backyard. Or if you're an environmentalist and you go to the big effort of putting in bee boxes, bat boxes, bird feeders, bird baths, whatever, a single light will sabotage all of your efforts. So this particular bylaw would be a win-win for the environment and for society. And it would be the first of its kind. So it would send a signal to our community to partake in environmental stewardship, to talk about the things that, drive away our pollinators. And light is a number one, driver of pollinator decline. And I'm not just talking hundreds of thousands, I'm talking billions of pollinators are impacted by herbicides, pesticides, loss of habitat, because when you look at the way farming is going, farmers are maximizing their efforts and farming right up to the edge of the road. So if you're a little creature, a fox, a bee, bird, bug, butterfly, whatever, and you're trying to find a place to lay your eggs, raise your young, protect them, where do you go? Homeowners are right now our very best bet. Our very best bet. Look at the fires last summer, the heat dome. They talk about all the cows and the livestock that were impacted in BC, but look at all the pollinators that were as well through the fires, the floods, the smoke, and like that. And Lethbridge is a prime agriculture area. We need to take whatever measure we can, more today than ever. Environment has to be factored in. But environment isn't the only reason. I'm here because that is on my radar. But this kind of bylaw would be different things to different people. Anyway, I hope you've had a chance to look at the at the letters. And then somebody from the Royal Astronomical Society this morning sent me this bylaw that the town of Bon Accord, which is just out of Edmonton, has adopted. And they have a dark sky designation, which is, I guess, a first in Canada. So I want to leave this with you. And I know I added a document. It was the light bylaws of Calgary. And I request that you nix that because this one is so much better. And the one that I think it's Jordan Wilson brought up, I think it was the city of Saskatoon. Those are two that, you know, if we adopt this bylaw, let's do it in the best way possible. And town of Bon Accord and the city of Saskatoon they have really set a standard for us. So thank you for your time. I don't know if you have any questions for me, and I'm sure there's other people that want to speak as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waz. And yeah, let's hear from, before we get to questions from council, is there anybody else who would like to speak? Yep, please come on up to the mic and state your name, please.
My name is Klaus Jericho. Thank you for your concern on this issue. I agree with everything Rena was just said, except she refers to it as a nuisance. I refer to it as an energy issue. And I tell an energy issue. Now I'd explain why I feel this way. Our post office building was erected in 1913, which was 30 years after Edison developed the light bulb, which was introduced in 1880. Well, since then, we have converted the dark space of Lethbridge in southern Alberta into a light ocean. And if I want to see the stars on the sky, I have to go to Del Bonita. Now, what we have done in the last 150 years, we should reflect on it. And as Rena mentioned, it has its consequences, not only to pollinators, little creatures, to us and every living creature, because we grew up with the sun coming up on the east and setting in the west. And when the sun set in the west, the candles came out. There was no other light. And now we are flooded in light to the point that we are trying to get away from it. The issue is one of energy because the energy we use nowadays comes from coal-fired power plants. And they will be shut down in about 10 years or so. And they will be replaced by gas turbines, wind turbines, and solar energy. So energy of this high-quality electricity will become far more expensive. And it is now time for us to get ready for that increase in expense and how we use energy and how we misuse our energy. When I say misuse, my neighbors, they use electricity very liberally. The lights are on all the time. In fact, my back lane, neighbor, he built a new garage, and the sides of the garage are lit up all night. Now, obviously, electricity, we have it now, is too cheap. If we can misuse it like that, it's obviously too cheap. So it has to become more expensive to attend to our needs, but also our responsibility to ourselves and other living creatures, because we do impact them with our use of energy. And I say this because I know the city is trying to lead in energy assessment and utilization, but I fear that the government institutions, being the federal and the provincial ones, are really not paying attention at all. I go to one institution and the lights are on all the time, whether it's in the hallways or wherever. So in other words, the electricity is just too cheap because we do ourselves harm by overusing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jericho. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Yep, please come up to the podium and state your name.
Good afternoon, thank you very much. My name is Gilles Leclerc, and I would like to address this issue as well in support. If someone left the light on in your bedroom and you couldn't turn it off, would you get a good, healthy sleep? If someone shined a light through your bedroom window at 2 a.m., would that be okay? Presently, we have no recourse against this from happening. And we all need a darkened space for a good night's sleep as much as we need sunshine. And so it goes for the rest of the natural world. 1/3 of bee and butterfly species are in decline, beset by various evils, including man-made ones like pesticides, changing climates, and light pollution. Now, the numbers and the science can give you everything you want to know about the damage we do to our planet in great detail and painful logic. But science doesn't have a good record of convincing people of much these days. So let's try a different point of view. Money is a good start. Let's talk about how the city could save tons of money by not having as many lights on for as many hours. Or better yet, how property values could go up because Lethbridge would have the nation's first bee-safe backyard. Or to further monetize the case, for the many who are interested, how about more tourism? Lethbridge could always use another tourist attraction, and having at least zones of darkness would be a draw for an increasingly weary, light-stimulated populace. Let's try another point of view. And I'll say this for the last because it is closest to my heart. It's really about quality of life. Quality of life is something we all want, and it's not always easy to have. It's enhanced by nourishing people's connections to nature, or at least providing them with an easy connection to nature. Back in the years 2013 to 2017, when I helped put on the Apple Fest, an autumn harvest celebration that included music, local artisans, and a huge amount of apples right here in Galt Gardens, the purpose of that was about connecting people, nature, and food. In a very organic and indirect way, real quality of life always comes around to uniting people with nature. And in a similar way, when you take away access to darkness, you inadvertently take away something that resonates with our humanity. I remember days of my youth spent in backyards with no artificial lights, enjoying the night sky and listening to the insect world. It's an education and a feeling that doesn't monetize well, but in fact, it's priceless. In these days of COVID, when we've come to pay greater attention to where we live, it's important we nourish and enable connections to the natural world. That, I maintain, we are obliged to pass on to the next generation. And speaking of oblige, I took a look at the last integrated community sustainability plan as part of the municipal development plan. The very first lines were, "We will continue to work together to ensure that Lethbridge is a leader in environmental stewardship, innovation, and active leadership." Lethbridge, I say, it's time to walk the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leclerc. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Please come up and state your name.
Hi, my name is Roger Metz. I just want to speak about a personal experience. So I'm happy with lighting. I like good cheap energy and wonderful LED lighting. But my neighbor built a new garage, and he put this crazy bright LED light on above his man door. Now, I'm okay with that, but it shines right at my house, and it shines right in my bedrooms. And 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm like wide awake because this bright light is turning on because it's motion sensor. And we have a windy city, so it's constantly going on and on. So I've even approached him and asked him to turn it, like, so it's not shining at my house. And he said, well, I can't do that because the light's not made that way. And I said, can you turn it off at night? He goes, he feels safer with it turning on, so there's nothing he will do. So he's happy with it shining right into my house at 2, 3, 4 in the morning as it's flashing on and off, because it's not shining into his house directly. So I don't know what to do anymore. There's nothing I can do besides, like, I've tried to put blackout curtains in my house, and they're not working that great. Besides, like, putting Peck-a-roll shutters on the outside of my house or something to stop the light from coming in. I don't know what else to do. And I feel victimized by it, and I feel like to a point where if I lose my mind in the middle of the night, I'll go over to his house with a bat and smash his lights, and then I'm in trouble. So I do think that something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Metz. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Please come up and state your name at the podium.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Harold Preversif. I live in Lethbridge. And I am concerned that there is no bylaw with respect to the lighting and the nuisance that it causes, just like the gentleman spoke there. I have a similar situation going on at a rental property I have in Lethbridge here. My neighbors have a large pool that's basically the backyard, and they've illuminated that to the point of 100% visibility for them, through the night, to the point where an existing neighbor moved because their house was constantly in light, and nothing they could do. They refused to turn the lights off, and that's basically, I'm in a quandary because my neighbor, or I should say my renters now are considering moving because of this, what happens during the summer. So, number one, if there was a bylaw, there'd have to be some teeth attached to it, because we know sometimes bylaws are good in principle but hard to enforce. So that would be the challenge to the city. But however, with something that we could go on, at least even if there was something in place to protect the environment and not have this light pollution going on in isolated situations and also in general. So that would be my plea. And, if there was something that could be implemented with respect to a bylaw, I would certainly be in favor of that as well as a resident. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Preversif. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Seeing none, I will turn this over to Council for questions. Councillor Middleton Hope.
My first question is to Ms. Voss, if you'd like to come back up. So what are you proposing? Are you proposing a ban on all exterior lighting throughout the whole city? Or are you just, or are we talking about pockets of lighting? What do you see, what do you envision for the future?
Well, this particular bylaw would address neighborhood lighting. City already has bylaws in place regulating businesses, whether it's a home-based business or a commercial business. This one would address neighborhood lighting. So you can have all the lights on you want. What it does is it would be complaint-driven, just like a noise bylaw. If you don't mind the dog barking, hey, you're not going to call the bylaw officer. But if the dog is keeping you up at night and your baby and like that, it's disruptive, you've got a bylaw that protects you. And the same with this light. If the light doesn't bother you, no problem. If it does, a bylaw officer would go out and advocate for you. And the thing we have to recognize is light pollution is about the easiest form of pollution to control, to mitigate. All that's required, pop a little shield over your light so it directs the light to shine down. So it's task lighting. It's not just up in the sky and going in every direction, shining into your bedroom. So this,
Actually, I just go over to my neighbor's place and tell her to turn off her light. That's just me.
that's a first step. But there are some neighbors that are very stubborn and that'll give you the finger before they turn off that light or pop a shield over
Okay,
it.
so you're not advocating to remove street lights and the other built lighting that we have in the community? Because from a crime prevention through environmental design perspective, it's essential.
Well, that is subject to, also to some questions. More light does not translate into safer communities.
Actually, it does.
Well, yes and no.
Oh, ma'am, it does.
Well, if the lights are properly angled,
Yep.
you know, but if the light, it's been shown that criminals can hide in those crevices between bright and dark. But that's not what I'm here for today. It's about neighborhood lighting.
Good.
To give an ordinary person that cares about, if you're an environmentalist, their ecosystem, the means to protect it. Because right now, there is no means. So it would be a win-win for society, social issues, where you're not having to get the fisticuffs out with your neighbor, and it's a win-win for the environment.
Thank you very much. Ms.
Good,
Wass?
thank you.
Thank you.
I see we have a question here from Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Ms. Watts, for the presentation. I remember you bringing this up during election time, one of our just conversations, and I appreciate your sincerity in regards to all environmental issues, so thank you very much. My question, I don't know, maybe I'll just say it. When we first put up the new street lights, there was some issue with it. They were the Cobra lights, the lights went down, but there were some areas where the lights went up, and the lights were so bright it projected onto people's households, where the city actually took it upon themselves to put up deflectors. And if you know what I'm saying here, if the light was too bright, it actually shined into your house. It was actually too bright, where the city took it upon themselves the responsibility to put a kind of a shield on certain sides. Is there something that we can do in working with neighborhoods on stuff like that? Like, I don't know, I'm throwing the question out there, and I know there's certain people online there. Is there any way we can work with homeowners and all that on a one-by-one basis based on complaints to find solutions? Or Ms. Watts, maybe you can help out with that.
Thank you for that question. I think if we're going to go to this effort, we need to do it right from the get-go. That would be futile, a real waste of energy. I think what we need is a bylaw, and like a lot of bylaws, the citizens at large, the community might not see any value in it to begin with. A smoking bylaw. Well, look at the good it's done. Unsightly premises bylaw. Look at the good it's done. I mean, there were other examples in some of those letters. This bylaw would get people talking about light. I mean, that light was only invented not even 150 years ago and really on scene about 50 years ago. Now, from space, our planet glows like a light bulb. All of that energy going straight up is 100% wasted energy. And we have to look at efficiencies to not pollute our planet.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wass. I see I have a question from...
Follow up. So, and I appreciate that. So here's my last question then for right now, Madam Chair. So let's say we have a person who has a household, and we've heard some very, very examples right here that I think are very, very credible and all that. So would the bylaw be set up in a way that, okay, complaining about the bylaw officer comes out, then obviously there's going to be an issue of discretion, because this person feels that it's too bright, it's obtrusive, and the other person goes, I like that light because it gives me safety and all that. I'm just trying to think here is, like Mr. Perverso said, you need to have teeth in part of this bylaw, but who interprets what is right and what is wrong in this? Because I see a lot of discretion, a lot of vagueness.
Well, that's always going to be a problem. No bylaw is perfect, but it's better than no bylaw at all. And the thing with light, all you have to do is properly angle the light so it shines down. It becomes task lighting, not just lighting that's indiscriminate. Salesmen, industry, manufacturers, they are churning out lights, the worst lights going. They don't care. It's money in their pocket. We care, and we're pushing back. They're pushing it on us. We're pushing back.
Okay, maybe I should have directed my question to Mr. Lowen, because I know Mr. Lowen's online right now, being our city solicitor. Mr. Lowen, you probably heard my question, and it was, I don't know if it was rhetorical, but is there a way to enforce something like this? Because there's got to be some discretion. Have you done any research into this at all, Mr. Lowen?
I've only taken some preliminary looks at different ways to regulate lights. Certainly there's design standards. You could set up some type of nuisance bylaw. The issue that you're raising around discretion, there are methodologies around measuring light intensity, the number of lumens at a certain distance. I don't know if there's any generally accepted standards for those to address the objective versus subjective nature of complaints, but certainly there'd be a lot of interesting legal issues to delve into if we were to consider regulating in this way.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Wass, as well.
With the noise bylaw, there is really no decibel level either.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wass. We're here to speak to this one. I've got Mike Fox, our Director of Community Services. Go ahead, Mr. Fox.
Hi, through the chair, I just wanted to add on to Mr. Parker's question there. And if it is council's wishes, we could look into creating a bylaw. And through any bylaw, the first thing, if it is enacted, is we would work with the resident. So if it is council's wishes for us to look at this, we could look at this and bring something back to the SPC.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fox. Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, I was kind of getting around to that as well with what Mr. Fox was talking about, that we do have to sort of go forward and come up with a plan. But I was just going to ask and Ms. Wasson, you were talking about the latest bylaw from, I don't remember, or was that Klaus you said, where's that bylaw from? The one you said it's all encompassing?
Well,
I was just going to say, Mr. Sarsfield does have a copy of that bylaw from.
Not this one, Ms.
From Bonacard, from Bonacard.
Oh, okay.
And
he's got that one for us.
Okay. Oh, and where? So where is that? I don't even know where that is.
It's a little town called Bonaccord, and it's just out of Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah, and Saskatoon is the other one that has.
Just, do we have any background as to how successful it's been, or do we know anything about that? And what's been the uptake?
That I can't speak on, but it is an excellent bylaw, something to, mirror our own bylaw, should we, implement one.
And that would be probably something we can look into as well with whatever committee goes forward or whoever goes forward, having a look at what we can implement. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell. I have a question I'm not sure who on our administrative team could answer this for me. Do we know if there are any current building codes that have any light restrictions on building permits or anything like that? Calgary does have in theirs where lights can be placed on buildings, how far back they can be and equal. Mr. Beerley, I see you pop up.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Fox, I'm not aware of any off the top of my head that would speak to exactly your question. I can do a little more research on that and get back to you if you like.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else on council have any other questions? Oh, Councillor Middleton Hope.
Just a comment to Ms. Voss and to the other gentleman who attended. Thank you for bringing this forward. It certainly gives us a lot to think about and from a different perspective. So thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Any? Sorry about that. I'm new here. So I'm just going to ask my fellow colleagues here, is there anything we would like to do to move this forward? Councillor Parker?
Well, I think we've gotten some good, valuable information here, and this is an issue that was driven by the community. And out of respect to the community, we should take this report, digest it, maybe possibly send a resolution to council. One of us at any time could bring something to council in regards to action, and then from council can give the direction to our administration, because we're a subcommittee of council, so it's up to us on that. So that's just kind of food for thought. This is new to me, but this is something that's been not something new to the community, so I want to make sure we're respectful to the people who've presented as well. Just I would like to listen to my other colleagues as well.
So the motion we currently have is, be it resolved that the Community Safety Standing Policy Committee receive the presentation and associated correspondence as information. Does anybody have any changes or questions about that resolution?
Just, are we, I mean, I'd like to make sure that we have an actionable item here, that we do present it to council. Can we make that in the bylaw, or is that incumbent upon us to bring it before council to say we want to look into the possibility of a bylaw? This just says we're going to, thanks for the information, but I'd like to see us say, well, let's look into it. Dave.
So the committee can do a number of things. First, the basic resolution is accepted as information, which this is suggesting. Second, they could make a recommendation that council proceed with researching and providing a report back to this particular committee on implementing a light nuisance bylaw. Or third, you could just put this resolution forward, it will go to council, and then any member of council, whether it be on this committee or otherwise, can promote a resolution to do something further. So
I'd like to see option 2. Okay, if we can have that written up.
Proceed with researching and implementing a light
Come back
nuisance bylaw, bring it back to this committee?
Back to this committee, yeah.
Yep.
So that would be a recommendation that will go to council.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not just saying, thanks for coming, but we're actually, thanks for coming, and we're going to do something. That's all I wanted to know.
Councillor Parker or Councillor Middleton Hope, any questions or additions to that? Councillor Middleton Hope?
I'm going to make sure that I turn out more of my lights. No, thank you. I'm fine with that. A motion back to City Council and request that City Council provide that to administration to do additional research on it. Yeah, thank you.
We're just waiting for the amended motion to come up here.
Madam Chair, Councillor Carlson
Yes,
here.
sorry, Councillor Carlson, we completely forgot you were back there.
Not a problem.
Now there's this disembodied voice. Go ahead.
Sorry. Just a question through you, maybe to Mr. Sarsfield. Does this recommendation have to go to council? I thought I heard that Mr. Fox, Mr. Brearley mentioned that they could do some research and bring it back to this committee. Could that not just be accomplished at this committee level? Does it need to wait a couple of weeks or a month to go to council and then come back to this committee? I'm just curious about the process.
It could be done either way. So ultimately, the minutes and the recommendations from this committee will go to council and appear on the consent agenda. If you wish to take action and without providing a recommendation other than further research be done to come back to this committee before making a recommendation, you're welcome to do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sarsfield, because that was my thought was if the committee wants to explore this further, the committee could explore it further without waiting. That was just my thought.
And I think that was my intent for me.
All right, so to Mr. Fox, is there a date that administration would be able to report back to us by?
Through the chair, I think I would have to talk to the staff and see what's all on their work lists
Okay.
to make sure that we could give this a thorough look at. I'd also have to talk with legal and Brian as we look at some different light bylaws and the pros and cons to them and what it enables us to do before bringing back. But I would say in a few months we should be able to have something back to the committee.
So if we said April or May,
yeah, that should be fine.
let's go with the April meeting. Do my other fellow councillors feel good about that, April? Yeah? Yeah. All right.
I think that just as long as management says, yeah, that's doable, I'm fine with that. Whatever they think is the doable date, I'm good. If they say April, then that's fine.
Mr. Fox, do you think April 14th is doable, or would you like to look at May?
Through the chair, again, I would have to check at the work flow through the different staff roles, but I think April or May would be sufficient time. I'm not saying that we will have an actual bylaw coming back,
No.
but we would have pros and cons and some examples of bylaws coming back to council for sure.
Okay, well, let's start with April, and if we need to change that, we can certainly look at that. So the motion we currently have is be it resolved that the Community Safety Standing Policy Committee received the presentation and associated correspondence as information, and further be it resolved that the SPC requests that administration provide a report back on the implementation of a light nuisance bylaw by April 14th, 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Councillor Campbell, second?
Yeah, yeah. Just, yeah, I think that this sort of states what we came here today. We've got information from the community that says we want to look at a nuisance bylaw. We've taken the information and we're going to turn it to management to come up with some kind of a look at what a nuisance bylaw would look like. So this is what we're doing here. So with that, I think we should accept this.
Any other questions to the motion? Can we move on to debates? Any debates? Call the question.
Question.
All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Seeing we have no submissions, we will adjourn. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out and for your presentations today.